Shalom, this is Daniel John Lee with Torah Restoration Ministries. The website is www.spiritandtorah.com. This is episode 43, my midweek podcast, TheBody, Phalanx. And again, this can be found in the teachings section, the top left-hand corner of the website, under the teachings tab. Phalanx, a compact or close-knit body of people, a crowd or unit. The body of Messiah, according to the book of Corinthians, is supposed to be a phalanx. Each member, though as distinct as the arm, hand, eye, or ear on a human body, are supposed to operate in synergy, working toward the same end, the glorification of the head, Messiah Yahshua. Yet today we see the so-called body of Messiah split by schisms, doctrinal differences, and thousands of denominations. What has gone wrong? The rejection of Torah. The Torah of Moshe has a powerful result on those who observe it: amazing unity. When Christians cast aside the lies they've inherited and the doctrinal disputes they have lived with due to their Gentile Western perception of the Jewish scriptures and adopt the Torah of Moshe, the doctrinal disputes fade and a synergy takes its place. Now, understandably, there are also schisms and disputes and differences within the Messianic Jewish movement as well, but this is because the Messianic Jewish movement in general does not adopt the Torah appropriately either. Christians are tired of the endless divisions between denominations. Again, this is not to say that there are not divisions within the Messianic movement. There are. However, it is undeniable that when a body of believers rejects Christianity in place of the Torah, more common ground is established amongst members than not. The gatherings for the annual feasts, the weekly Shabbats, the monthly new moons, the similarity in diet, clothing, etc., all help to bring people of various backgrounds into harmony with one another. And really what it does is it puts people on the same page. Now, the Torah was designed for an entire nation, a culture of people. So when a body of believers adopts the Torah as its code, they establish a culture of Torah that is not present within the pagan churches. The Gentile Western perception of Scripture is given to disputes and doctrinal differences because of its limited understanding. The Torah-centered gospel opens the mind and heart to the Jewish heart and soul of Scriptures, destroying many disputes and emphasizing the unity amongst believers through Jewish song, dance, festivals, and the weekly Shabbat. For example, in Israel today, Jewish families use the weekly Shabbat to draw closer together and strengthen their families. It is a 24-hour period of time in which families can spend together when not at synagogue. Now contrast this with the typical Christian Sunday, in which many Christians attend a service for 2 hours and then go work or conduct business for the rest of the so-called Sabbath. The Torah is filled with so many feasts and celebrations that it is hard not to establish unity amongst Torah keepers. It is certainly easier than trying to form bonds between pagan Christians who might throw a potluck every once in a while on a Sunday afternoon after a boring service. Now again, I'm not referring to the Messianic Jewish movement in general because, like I said, as with the Christian churches, the Messianic Jewish movement in general oftentimes does not keep the Torah like it should. But in a true synagogue-style, Torah-centered congregations, they're much more likely to establish a phalanx as well. So what I mean by that is rather than one pastor speaking to an assembly, which, by the way, is very Babylonian, everyone, like it says in the book of Acts, everyone brings a song, a word, a prophecy, a tongue. Everyone hashes out doctrine. Everyone participates. Thus, everyone is involved and included. So this is why Paul and Barnabas could go to towns and simply walk into synagogues, being invited to speak, because everyone was allowed to speak in the synagogue. I mean, did you ever wonder when you read the book of Acts how it was that Paul could just sort of walk right into a synagogue that he'd never been to before, in a city that he had never visited before, and he could just walk right in and he could start teaching or preaching or sharing what was on his heart? And it was because the way the synagogue is set up, it's completely different from a church. There's not just one man standing over an assembly and then speaking. That's Babylonian. but it was literally everyone was allowed to speak and to stand up, and everything had to be decent and in order. You couldn't just start shouting over each other, but everyone had the opportunity to speak. It wasn't just one man or a pastor that was allowed to deliver a message. So there was a lot of involvement through all the members of the body, and this helped to establish that unity and that phalanx of people, which you don't see in Christian churches today, and in many Messianic churches either. Now, as I mentioned before, there are, of course, disputes within the Messianic movement involving Kabbalah, two-house doctrines, the need for Gentiles to keep Torah, etc. But if you actually find a Messianic congregation where they're really good about keeping the pure Torah out of a love for Yahshua, you will see an amazing unity that you won't see amidst a lot of, a typical Messianic or a Christian church. For example, I've gone to a number of tabernacles, Feast of Tabernacles, and Passover festivals, and the unity that's displayed there is just amazing because everyone's getting together. There's no one person that's over everyone else. Everyone is coming together as like-minded believers to, roast a lamb, eat the bitter herbs, remember and reflect what Passover is all about, or to pitch a tent, to join together with the believers, to rejoice that it's the festival of ingathering. I mean, these are feasts that are designed to bring people together, to make the body of Messiah a phalanx, a true one man, which is what Paul describes in 1 Corinthians. We talk, and we hear a lot of talk from pulpits about how the body of Messiah is to be this man with all these different body parts working together, but how often do we see that working itself out practically? And a lot of times it's not that Christians or Messianics don't want to be unified. I think they do, but because they're not keeping the purity of Torah, they're not really keeping these Sabbaths or these feast days like they should be, you're missing an essential ingredient, a glue that seals people together. I mean, I think that's one of the main reasons why Yahweh instituted these feasts and these Sabbaths and these things to celebrate, is to bring people together. It establishes unity. And it establishes unity not at the expense of doctrine, which is what we have in the white horse charging this year, and what we have in the economical movement, where people just say, let's just be unified for the sake of unity, and who cares if we all disagree about everything. No, this is a true unity rooted in doctrine, rooted in the fact that we are going to participate in these weekly Sabbaths and in these new moons and in these annual feast days. So I say, let us return to the Torah of Moshe, that the bond of the law of liberty might seal us together as one body, working in conjunction with the head, Messiah Yahshua. This obviously is the intent of what Yah has for his body, for his people. He's not looking for a people that just wants to split off into a million zillion different churches over, different disputes. I remember there was a story once that I heard about these two Christian churches, and or a Christian church that split off into two Christian churches because one of them believed that Adam and Eve were born with no belly button, and the other group believed that they were born with a belly button. And so they literally split over that issue. Okay, that's ridiculous. That's nonsense. And there are 1,001 issues out there that Christians and Messianics will divide upon, when what really we should be doing is, if we're pursuing the purity of Torah out of a love for Yahshua, the Spirit which bears witness within us should be drawing us together. And these feasts that we participate in, the weekly feasts of the Sabbath and the monthly feasts of the new moons and the annual feasts of Passover and Shavuot and Tabernacles, these things should be drawing us together and putting us on the same page and giving us a means to celebrate and to agree upon what we're doing. The big difference between Gentile Christianity and the Jewish way of doing things is Gentile Christianity is really into the sort of the theoretical and the philosophical and the debating issues, whereas the Jewish mode of doing is doing. It's putting action first. And when you put action first, when you actually do the Torah, it necessarily causes you to be unified with your brothers and sisters in Yah. And that's what we need in these last days. So I hope this teaching blessed you. May you have a wonderful rest of the week, and I will see you on Shabbat. Shalom.